Hello, my name is Jacob Blankensop and I'm going to be doing a health check on a carp. For purposes of demonstration, I'm going to be health checking multiple carp on different areas as not to stress the fish out too much. There's well over 1,000 carp in this pond, so it's unrealistic to do health checks on all of them. So once I've finished this demonstration, I'll be performing a health check on 20 carp to ensure that the rest of the population in here is healthy. To start off, I have a carp here. They're all varying sizes, but they're the same age, about 1 summer old. To start off the health check, you want to start from the front and go towards the back to avoid contamination. When handling a carp, you want to ensure you have wet hands as to not damage the mucus layer that envelops the entire carp. So to start off, I'll start from the mouth and head backwards. So when looking at the mouth, you want to ensure that there's no injuries, no damage. You don't want any discharge or anything forming around the mouth. This one looks alright. I'll move further back onto... Here's a small one. I'll move back further onto the nostrils, ensure they're nice and clear and no discharge coming out of them. When looking at the eyes, you want to ensure they're bright and clear, that there's no discharge in them, and that they're not sunken. Sunken eyes can indicate that the fish has koi herpes virus, which is a very deadly virus amongst carp. It occurs in waters above 16 degrees Celsius and have many symptoms I'll go through later. Working backwards, you want to get a nice look inside the gills. You want to make sure the carp is breathing or using their gills in a nice rhythmic motion, no labored breathing or anything like that. If you get a look inside the gills, you want to see a nice burgundy or plum color. That indicates that their gills are in proper working condition. So I'll move on to the fins next. When looking at the fins, you don't want them to be clamped down to the body. That can indicate high stress in the fish. As you can see here, they're quite far away from the body, which is ideal. Let's see. You want to look at the fins again. Make sure there's no what you call fin rot, so they're not damaged. They're clear. There's no blood. Nothing injuring. They're nice and healthy looking. Okay. When looking at the scales and the body condition itself, you want to make sure that the scales are nice, bright and clear. They're not lifting. There's no ulcers, no damage to the scales itself. As you can see on this carp, there's a couple ulcers and bloody patches. This usually indicates that there's external parasites or ectoparasites on the carp itself. The ulcers usually form after the parasite feeds, and where the parasite is fed becomes infected. Treatments for this would include topical treatments on an individual level or medicating the whole lake. There's an additive you can add to fish pellets that will prevent, or that will make the mucus layer and the skin of the carp inhospitable. So you can use that as well as a treatment. What I do next is I would feel the body for any lumps and bumps, for any parasites, which you can feel right here. There's a parasite there and a parasite there. There's not much you can do about that other than medicate them, treat them, which is what I'll be doing right after the demonstration. There are many other parasites that can be found on carp. The one we've just seen would be Argulus, which is a very common parasite found in carp. There's flat disc-like parasites that live on the top of the scales of the carp. There's other There's other parasites such as eye fluke, which inhabit the eye and cause discharge release and the sunken look that you find on some carp. There's many other parasites. They're usually microscopic. So what you would do, I can't do it here now, but what you do is you do something called a scale scrape or skin scrape. You would get a flat disc and you would scrape along the mucus lining of the carp on both sides, and then you would look under a microscope to see if there's any microscopic parasites inside or living on the carp. The mucus layer is another thing you want to check. You can run your finger along and make sure it's not too smooth. You don't want any reddening or excess mucus, because that can be a sign of infection in the carp. Once we've done that, we will move further down onto the dorsal fin and the tail fin. You want to make sure they're nice and clear, no reddening, no signs of infection. This one looks all right. You want a nice clear red color on them. That indicates that they're nice and healthy. I'll then move down to the cloaca. Once again, no discharge, no redness. You don't want any bits of feces remaining on the outside or even hanging off. This one looks all right here. When looking at the scales, there's microscopic parasites that you can find. What I do on that is a scale scrape or skin scrape. What you would do is you would use a clean microscope slide or like a wooden spatula, anything to scrape the top layer of mucus off. You would gently do it on each side of the fish, from behind the gill cover to the end of the tail, at a 45-degree angle. Once you lift the mucus, you want to mix it with a little bit of pond water and observe it under a microscope. Without waiting no longer than 5 minutes. You want to ensure that the parasites don't leave or die while performing this. So, one major virus that carp suffer from is carp edema virus, otherwise known as CEV. People that keep koi call it koi sleepy disease. It's a highly contagious virus that affects the gills of the carp. It's a very significant disease because it is lethal once the carp catches it. Treatments you can use for this is symptoms you'd find in CEV would be lethargy. They would be very unresponsive. They would be motionless, essentially, in the water, only swimming when they get disturbed before they sink back into the water. The gills will be severely swollen and have they'll be suffering from necrosis, so they'll be very rotten looking and they'll be damaged. There'll be white patches, things like that all over the gills. Again, sunken eyes is another symptom of this disease, and you'll see that their gills and their breathing will be labored and the function will be impaired. You find it on a wide temperature range, from as low as 3 degrees Celsius. If the water's that cold, they can still suffer from it. And there's no direct cure for the virus. So all you can really do is treat them, or for this case, if we had this, the whole population would have to be euthanized. For an individual, you can give them a saline bath, which is very effective to reduce the mortality. but the fish will still be a carrier and they will still have injury to their gills, which will impair their function. A saline bath would, again, help the mortality, but they would still be a carrier, so introducing to any other water after they recover would be detrimental to the other fish, as they would catch the disease. When it comes to parasites and skin scraping, they're in a wild environment, so there will always be there'll always be parasites living on the carp. We just want to catch the ones that are detrimental to their health. For example, eye fluke and fish louse. They really impact the health of the fish, but we are not concerned about many of the other parasites that live amongst or live on or in the fish.